Are you able to follow along? I just give you guys a few minutes to set up. I think this will be beneficial for all of you if you know how to assign different material properties to different parts. Okay, great. So first thing we'll do is we'll set our preferences. You're able to see my screen? Hold on. Right, you're able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So first thing we do, we set our preferences. And let's just save it as something. Save as, where do I want to save it? Let's just use this as example. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to make something similar to this. Hold on. Right, we're going to make a simple truss. Okay, we're going to create 4 different beam elements. We're going to have these all be one material property. And then we'll have another material property going up, 4 different beams from the 4 different corners, all joining at the top. And we'll have the bottom here be one plate. Okay, and then we'll apply one force. We'll apply a force here and we'll restrain these, and we'll apply 3 different material properties. Okay, we'll have a plate, we'll have beams at the bottom, and then these red ones will be a different beam. Okay, that's the kind of thing we're going to go for. Just to demonstrate how you do different material properties. Okay, so there are multiple different types of units that you can set your software to. So far, we've just worked with SI. So if you want to stay with SI, that's fine. So we set our units. We go to preprocessor, element type. So those are 4 beams at the bottom. We're going to make them beams. We're going to have them be I-beams. Okay, we're going to make them I-beams. So for you guys who are doing bridges, this will be very beneficial to you guys if you follow along. So beam, and we'll choose 3 node 189. Okay. So that's the bottom beam. We'll have another beam. We'll have beam type and we'll define the plate element. So plates, when we're working with beams and plate elements together in one model, instead of defining it as a solid and then solid, and then we choose a quad 4 node or 8 node, we'll select a shell element, which is basically the same thing as a plate, and we just define the thickness. So we'll go shell element and we'll select 4 node and click OK. So we have 2 different element types here. We can close this. Now we can go about defining our different material properties. So we'll go material properties, material models. Now up here, you can add new models, add new material properties. So this is material property 1, number 1. So go structural, linear, elastic, isotropic. And this will be the material property for the beams, for the bottom beams, the I-beams. So those ones, I'll give it 210 gigapascals, Poisson's ratio of 0.3. Okay. And now I'll add a new material property, material property 2. Again, isotropic, and this one here, I'll give it, this will be for the plate, so I'll give it a Young's modulus of 180. These are just random numbers. Of course, for your assignment, you would use actual material properties that you research for. Poisson's ratio of 0.22. Okay. Now, also in material property 1, you can also define the density of your, material, which will help you when you start to apply your gravitational loads. So for density, I'll enter 7860. So that's kg per meter cube. Okay, and material property 2, I'll also give it a density. 7860. Or let's go 60. So now our two material properties have a density as well as the Young's modulus and the Poisson's ratio defined. So this material property 1, I will use it for my beams at the bottom here, my I-beams, the black ones. Material property 2, I'll use for my plate. So I'll define a third material property for my red trusses going up to a central point. So for material property 3, I'll add a new material property. This is material property 3. Okay. And I will give it isotropic 200 gigapascals, Poisson's ratio 0.3. Right, so what we've done now is we've just defined all of the material properties for all the different materials that we're using in our model. Are you guys following along with me so far? You can enter any values. I'm just using
Yes.
these, but you can use whatever values you research and find. So we have our 3 material properties. Was this. Now we have to start defining the sections. So I'll go to sections, and I'll first define the properties for my sections. So I'll go beam, custom sections. Now this will be ID number 1, and this will be for the I-beam. So I'll do I-beam. Let's say black beams in that small drawing that I did. The subtype, it'll be an I-beam. And I enter whatever values I want for the width and the thicknesses. So width, I'll set it to 120 millimeters. Again, you can enter any values that you want. These are just random. Actually, that's kind of thick. I'll make this 5 millimeters, 8 millimeters. Right, so this is material property 1. If I want to preview it and see what it looks like, preview, show me these things. It'll give me my I values. So if I'm going to do hand calculations, I don't have to calculate for I values. It's all here. IY, IYZ, IZZ, so on and so forth. Your area, all that is already given. Set, I'm happy with that. Make sure you click OK. So that's my black beams. Now I'll go back and create another beam section for my red beams. Again, looking back here, for these red beams, this is a very crude drawing. Let me redraw this just so that it's easier for us to follow along. So we're going to have 4 beams here. We're going to have 4 beams coming up. Whoops. So again, 4 beams at the bottom. I'll apply 4 red beams and we have 1 plate here at the bottom. So these will be I-beams. This one here will be circular, hollow. And this one will have a thickness of 20 millimeters. Okay. We'll make this a 1 meter by 1 meter. So 1 meter by 1 meter, and the total height will be 1.5. Okay, you all following along with me so far? So back to our software. We've defined our first cross-section, the black beams, the I-beams. Now let's go and create another cross-section for our circular hollow sections. So we'll go here, select circular hollow. Internal radius will be, let's say, 0.03. So that's 3 centimeters. And the outside radius will be 0.035. So 5 millimeters thickness will be our thickness of our hollow section. This one, I will name it red beams. Preview it. So this is what it'll look like. We're happy with that, we can click OK. So now we have 2 sections that we've defined. We have 3 material properties that we've defined. We can also go to our shell. Shell, layup, add, and we can define the thickness of our shell. Our shell is our plate, remember. So the thickness, I'll set it to, we said 20 millimeters, so 0.02. Happy with that? I'll click OK. Now we've defined all of the sectional properties of all of our materials, our I-beam, our circular section, as well as our plate. So now we can go about setting up the modeling, doing the modeling. So modeling, create key points in active coordinate system. So key point number 1, I'll have it at 1, will be the very top of our pyramid. Going back here, key point number 1 will be up here. This will be key point 1, then key point 2, key point 3, key point 4, key point 5. Set. Are you guys following along? Okay, great. So key point 1, I'll have it at 0. Y direction, I'll make it at 1.5. And Z will be 0. Apply. Now key point 2, I'll have it at 0.5 in the X, 0 in the Y, 0.5 in the Z. Apply. Key point 3, I'll have it at 0.5, 0, minus 0.5. Key point 4, I'll have it at minus 0.5, 0, minus 0.5. And key point 5, I'll have it at minus 0.5, 0, 0.5. Happy with that? Then click OK or cancel. Now just to show it, isometric view. So I have key point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. You want me to give you guys a minute or two just to catch up? Shall I give you guys a minute or two or carry on? Okay, also on the side panel here, we have some very important tools. We have the dynamic rotate button. So if we select dynamic mode and we click on the right mouse, we can rotate it. We can rotate our model. And if we left click and hold down, we'll be able to move our model. So right click, hold down, will be rotating. Left click, hold down, will be moving. And then when we want to go back into modeling again, we just turn off dynamic mode. I'm sure you guys already played around with these different functions. Okay, I'll just create my lines now between these key points. So create lines, lines, straight lines. So 4 to 1, 3 to 1, 2 to 1, 5 to 1. Then our bottom lines, so 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 5 to 2, sorry. So those are all of our lines created. And remember, we have to create a shell element, a plate in between. So I'll go create areas. rectangle by 2 corners. Sorry. Areas arbitrary through key points. And we select the 4 key points. You all following along? Dynamic
Yes.
plot, replot, plot, multiplots. We have our different lines, 4 lines, and our plate in between. Let's just give it some numbering. So numbering, let's turn on key point numbers, turn on line numbers and area numbers. So all of those are numbered now. And if we click on the top corner, isometric, it'll just show us the isometric view again. Right. So now we can go about assigning different material properties to different sections or different members in our model. And to do that, we have to go to meshing. So we go to meshing, mesh attributes, and now we select the lines that we want to give certain material properties to. So we'll go to not picked key points. We'll go to picked lines, and we'll select all of our black lines, all of the base ones, the I-beams. So line 5, 6, 7, 8. Click OK. Now this pops up. Material number. Now, if you remember, when we created our material properties, material property 1 was for our I-beam. Yes, the 210 gigapascals, the Poisson's ratio and the density. You remember? Material property 1, that was the ID number for material property 1. So I'll keep that as material property 1. There are no real constants set. Element type, I want to use beam 189, that's fine. And the section was the black beams. Oh, it's actually changed to red beams. So the section, red beams. Actually, wait, let's go back and check our materials, our sections. Okay, so this is material ID 2. Material ID 1 wasn't supposed to be red beams, sorry, this is supposed to be black beams. 0.12, 0.15, 0.0, 0.005, 0.005, 0.008. Apply. Now change the ID number to, that was where I made my mistake. Right. Let's change this to material property 3. circle, inside radius 0.05, 0.08. Material property 3, this will be our red beams. Okay. Right, sorry. Going back to applying the material properties. Meshing, mesh attributes, pick lines, these bottom lines. Material property 1 is fine, and the section will be black beams. First, let's say pick orientation key points. Let's just keep that as no for now. I'll show you why that is in a minute. Now we click apply. Now let's select our other beams, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's make sure we've selected them all. Okay, all beams selected. Let's click OK. Now this has a different material property. This was material property 3, I believe. Material property 1 was the I-beam. Material property 2 was the plate. Material property 3 was the I-beam, was the circular section. I'll keep my element type as beam 189, and the section I will change to be my red beams. Once I'm happy with that, I click OK. And finally, I have to give a material property to our plate. So I'll go to all areas or picked areas, whatever one works. So I'll just go all areas. This one will be a shell element. So I'll change my element type. Material property will be material property 2. And the element section will be section 2, which is the thickness that we defined. Now we click OK. Once we've done that, we can mesh our parts. So we go to mesh tool. Now for the areas, select this area. OK. Size of each element, edge element. Let's set it to, this is a 1 meter by 1 meter square. So let's set it to 10 centimeter increments. Apply. Now for our lines, let's select all lines. We'll mesh them all the same size. Number of divisions, we'll divide each line by, let's say 5 elements. And click OK. Now mesh tool again. We go and we mesh the areas first. Once we're happy with that, click OK. Mesh tool. Display all of our lines. So multi-plots. Mesh tool. And we change this to lines. And we mesh. Pick all lines. Happy with that. Now we've meshed all of our lines. We have 8 lines here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and these 4 going up. When you mesh, then you can go to plot controls, view settings, plot controls, style, size and shape, and you turn on display element. Click OK. And now your thing is displayed as 3D elements. And you can quite clearly see we have our I-beams down here at the bottom and our circular sections going up. And we have a plate with a thickness. But you'll notice that by default, the I-beams are set as H-beams, which means they're on their side. Now to orientate them properly, I will end this session now and start a new session with the same login information. And you can join that and I'll show you how to properly orient your I-beams so that the flanges are facing upright and not set on their side like this, so that the web is parallel to the y-axis. Okay, guys, so I'll just end the session now and start the next session where I'll demonstrate that bit. Use the same login as you did to join this session.